Namaskar, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Dr. Sanjeev Gupta. For my details, you can go on the description underside the video. Friends, this is my fifth video on the series corporate frauds or frauds under the Companies Act. So today we will discuss about the misappropriation of assets as one of the type of the corporate frauds under the Companies Act. Now, what is misappropriation of assets? A fraud where assets are misappropriated or assets are theft or stolen, that is called misappropriation of assets. In other words, we can say that misappropriation of assets involves misuse or theft of the assets of the company, which may be in cash or in kind. Now, assets means the current assets as well as the fixed assets. Current assets are those assets which can be converted into cash or equivalent to cash in a period of 12 months, while the fixed assets are those assets which are purchased by an organization to use these assets over a spread of years. So now you can say that if we sell the assets, that can be converted into cash into a period of 12 months. No. The purpose is also seen. The cash in hand, cash at bank, the stocks, they are the current assets, because the stock is generated to sell it in the open market. But the fixed assets, that is plant and building, land and machinery, and furniture and fixtures, they are purchased by an organization in order to use these assets over a period of years. So current assets and the fixed assets. The misappropriation of assets involves both type of assets. In other words, we can say that there are two types of assets, the tangible assets and the intangible assets. What is the tangible assets? Which we can see by our eyes, that is called the tangible assets. And what are the intangible assets? That we can feel only, like brand, goodwill, reputation of an organization, that are called the intangible assets of the company. Now, the misappropriation of assets involves cash or other assets of a company. What are the devices of the misappropriation of assets? We can divide the devices of misappropriation of assets as cash frauds or non-cash frauds. Cash fraud means where the cash is involved. Cash means the money or the checks, the money orders, like that. While in non-cash frauds means the fixed assets or the stock or the intangible assets of the company. So, what are the cash frauds? Cash frauds can be further categorized into two categories as the cash receipts and cash disbursed. Means the cash is stolen when the cash is received by a company, and the cash is stolen when the cash is disbursed by the company. Again, we can divide the cash receipts into two categories, that is scheming and larceny. What is scheming? Scheming means an employee of the company steals the cash and does not enter or before entering the transaction into the books of the company. While larceny is, on other hand, it is the stealing of cash after entering into a transaction into the books of the company. What is cash disbursement? Cash disbursement means when the cash is paid by an employee to an outsider. For example, manipulation of legitimate vendors, manipulation of payrolls. Next, creation of shell companies. The other one is the payment of cash on false promises on the false grounds. Now, this is what about cash frauds, and what about non-cash frauds. The non-cash frauds are the theft of inventory and theft of fixed assets. How the inventory is theft? Inventory, manipulation of inventory at the time of buying of an entry, at the time of incoming of an inventory into the organization. It leads to the manipulation of inventory records. Similarly, when the inventory is sold out, means false sales, manipulation of sales, that also leads to manipulation of inventory. Other than manipulation of inventory, that is theft of fixed assets. Friends, what is the cash frauds and what are the non-cash frauds? In brief, we discussed about this. Now, for examples, how we can say that the scheming. Scheming is stealing of cash without getting the transaction into the books of accounts of the company. On the reverse side, larceny, it is stealing the cash after the transaction has been recorded in the books of the company. Under scheming, if a company is running a business of bar restaurants, now if you visit any bar restaurant, you will find that number of bottles are displayed in the racks on the front or the back sides of the chairs, so that the people or the visitors can know which type of brands are available in this bar room. What the employees do, how they steal the goods without recording the transactions. They open the box and withdraw the bottles and sell it to the customers. But they never dispose of the box of the bottles. They put up the box on the rack again. So this is the stealing of cash without entering into any transaction or the sale transaction into the books of the company. Next, larceny. How the entry is recorded in the books. The transaction is recorded in the books, but the funds are steals. How? A company is selling goods to a customer and the customer has given the money to the company, and I have entered both transactions, that sale of goods as well as receipt of goods. But I have entered only the sales transaction, not the cash transaction, and put the money into my pocket. And after 3 years, as per Limitation Act, I put up the writing of bad debts without creating provision for bad and doubtful debts, or after creating provision of for bad and doubtful debts. So the money transaction is entered into the books of the company as sales of the wine, whiskey or beer bottles to the customers. But whatever cash is received, it is not entered in the books, because they are our permanent customers. They are our members to whom we raise the bills after the end of a month. This is larceny and scheming. Now, what is the methods, or what are the devices, or we can say the cash frauds at the time of disbursements? Manipulate legitimate vendors. We are getting the goods from our vendors. The vendors are supplying the goods and we are giving money to them. But in our books, we are not showing that we have paid the money to them. Because if I am purchasing a goods, I am in a company and you are a vendor, the vendor has supplied the goods to me and I have made money to you. I have paid the money to you. Okay, but at the time of cash disbursement, what the companies do? They are saying that we have taken the goods from him, but stealing cash by not showing that we have paid the entire amount to that person. Next, manipulation of payrolls. What is manipulation of payrolls? You know that in Satyam case, what happened? In Satyam case, the B. Ramalinga Raju inflated the salary figure in its balance sheets. The dummy employees were there. The employees were only on the papers. No physical employees was there. And he was withdrawing a huge amount against the heading salary. So this is the manipulation of the payrolls. Misappropriation of assets may be done either by the employees or the employees, but in most of the cases it is done by the employees or the employers who are in a position to cheat the other promoters or the other directors of the company. Next, creation of shell companies. How creation of shell companies? If shell companies are those companies which are only in the paper companies, they have no transactions, there is no purchase, no sales in actual, but The funds are transferred from one company to another company. If I am a director, I am a promoter of a company, I have huge funds, my sales is good. What I will do, I will create a shell company and transfer my amount from this company to that shell company as loan and advances, and will withdraw the money from that company, and that company will never pay or will never return my money into this company from which I have given the loan or advances to that company. So this is the creation of shell companies for the purpose of misappropriation of assets. The non-cash frauds are those frauds which are categorized into as theft of inventory and theft of other fixed assets. Now, how the theft of inventory? If I am purchasing goods or I am getting the goods from a vendor, I am not entering or I am entering the transactions into books of my company as short supply of goods from such and such vendor, and I am stealing the goods which are shown as short supply. Similarly, in case of selling, if I am selling the goods to someone, what I will do, I will transfer the more assets to a person, because that will show that the goods were pilfered during the transfer of goods from warehouse to the customer's accounts. Next, when the goods are needed from one location to another location of the same company, the goods are theft or the assets are theft. These type of frauds are generally done in case of construction companies. Now, the theft of other assets, the fixed assets. How? What the management do? The fixed assets means the plant and machinery, the furniture and fixtures, the office equipments, and office equipment means computers, laptops. Furnitures includes the ACs, and plant and machinery, number of machineries which are used in a company that are also usable by a person for his personal use or for the businesses which is running under his proprietorship or partnership firm that is not related with the company. There are various modes or various techniques used by the fraudsters to misappropriate the assets or misuse or theft the assets of an organization. A few of them are being discussed here. In the fixed sales, the sales occurs when the goods are sold but not taken on record of the company. Two people participate in this transaction. One is the employee of an organization and second one to whom the goods are supplied without making the sales entry in the books of the company. The employee does not record the sales while the accomplice takes the assets without making payment, and the buyer in this case passes a nominal amount to the employee to complete the illegal transaction. This is fake sales. The next one is the fictitious sales. The fictitious sales is fraudsters create fake sales bills to make the theft of assets and enters debit to accounts receivable, means debtors are created in this cases, or correspondence to credit sales accounts to make it appear that the missing goods have been sold. So this is the fictitious sales. The next one is our manipulation of incoming and outgoing inventory. In the case of false incoming consignments, the employee of a company in connivance with other employees manipulate the quantity of incoming goods as incoming goods are shown in short quantity, while the goods are received in full quantity. This is done with an intention to steal those goods which are shown as short delivery. In false outgoing goods or assets, the intention of the employee is to steal the goods in a legal manner by creating false shipping documents or fake sales bills or documents so that the stolen goods should be shown against sales. The next one, it is assets recognition and transfer. This type of misappropriation of assets is generally done in the construction companies or the companies which are running the retail stores, the supermarket stores. In assets recognition and assets pilferation, non-cash assets are removed from one location to another to facilitate the misappropriation of assets. They simply overstate the amount of assets and pilfer the excess. Fraudsters fabricate a project with a requirement of certain assets, and these assets are those assets which they want to steal from an organization. These frauds are committed by dishonest employees who falsify assets transfer forms and remove inventory or other assets from a warehouse. After transferring the assets, the fraudsters take it at their place, that is assets recognition and transfer. These are the 5 techniques in this slide, and in next slide we will talk about the other techniques that are used by the fraudsters to manipulate or the assets of the company, or to misutilization, or to theft the assets of the company. That is called the misappropriation of assets. Friends, in my last slide I discussed about the techniques used by the fraudsters to misappropriate the assets of the company. There are few another techniques which are used by the employees or employers to misappropriate the assets of an organization. The forced inventory reports. The perpetual inventory is matched with the actual inventory, wherein the difference between the actual inventory and the inventory shown in the books of accounts are matched in such a manner that no one can judge whether the goods are showed in actual or whether the goods are in excess in actual. This is the forced inventory reports. The next one is the writing off of inventory. The writing off of inventory means removal of assets may be done by writing off of inventory and other assets. The removal may be before or after they are stolen. A director disposed fixed assets by reporting them as broken while the assets never broken but taken away by him for himself, like computers or laptops. Certain times what happens, there are costly laptops or computers or other items which are purchased by an organization for business purposes. But when the intention of the employer or the employees who are on a topmost position, they need certain goods for their personal use, so they steal the goods from the company and show these goods as broken while these goods are never broken. The next one is the physical padding. Physical padding means manipulation of inventory reports in the most common method is the most common method of concealment. Inventory is altered either by changing the perpetual inventory or by the false matching during the physical inventory, that is called the physical padding. The next one is the misutilization of information. There are certain types of information that are used or that are created or that are very much confidential for an organization, for its business or entity. In this type of misappropriation, an employee passes private and confidential information to an employee of another company to get some undue advantage. The undue advantage may be in cash or maybe to get a job in that particular company. The last is the misappropriation of securities. The director of accounting or the director of finance or CFO or any person who is in charge of the financial transactions of a company making trades, trades means securities trades, left his computer unattended for a short time while signed into one of the company's investment account. Another employee who was searching for an opportunity to do a fraud enters into the cabin of that senior person and took the opportunity to access the director's computer to sell certain amount of investment and have the proceeds mailed to the company. Due to lax internal controls, the employee was able to intercept the checks and deposit it into his or her own bank account because this employee was in charge of reconciling the investment as well as the bank statement. So these are the techniques used by the fraudsters to misappropriate the assets of an organization. The misappropriation of assets is a major threat to all the organizations or to all the managements or the employers of a company. Can we minimize, or can we reduce, or can we completely make a company the fraud free company? No, we cannot make any company fraud free company, but we can minimize, we can reduce the risk of frauds that is done through misappropriation of assets. It is a major threat to each and every organization, because due to this, when the cash involvement is there and there is a manipulation of cash, then the profitability suffers as well as the morale of the employees also suffers, and which leads to the employees turnover from one company to another company. Can we, or are there any measures through which we can reduce the fraud which is done through misappropriation of assets? Certainly, there are various things which we can use in our organization to minimize the risk of frauds through misappropriation of assets. First of all, install the CCTVs to check out the workings or the habits of our employees who are working in an organization. The use of cameras or CCTVs are most important when we are running the retail stores. For example, the pharmacy stores, the supermarket stores, because there are number of items which are very costly items. For example, if you are selling the perfumes which is costing to 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000, an employee can easily put the perfume in his pocket or in his bag. So by installing the CCTVs, you can control or you can minimize the risk of misappropriation of assets. Next, clear segregation of duties. In small organizations, you will find that all the duties are complied by a same person. No, it is not a good practice. The management or the employees have to change their habits, and some segregation of duties must be there. For example, if we are purchasing goods, then the need recognition of goods must be prepared by one person, the purchase of goods must be done by another person, and the matching of goods, whatever is put up in the invoice and whatever is received by the organization, it has to be checked by another person. And the last one, which is very much important, the payment of money against the supply of these goods to the vendors, it should be done either by another employee or within a joint involvement of the management. If all the activities or all the compliances are done by one person, there are very much chances that that employee will or is likely to commit a fraud. Next one, preparation and implementation of whistleblower policy, and create awareness among the employees that this is our fraud policy, these are the causes, these are the fraudulent acts or these are the fraudulent activities which are covered under this policy, and if any employee is found involved in this type of activities, he will bear such and such consequences. The next, proper control or proper audits or internal audits of the stock of the company with or as comparison to stock showing in the books of accounts as well as stock lying in the premises of the organization, whether it is warehouse, whether it is godowns, or whether it is the registered office or the corporate office of the company. So friends, this is misappropriation of assets as one of the type of the corporate frauds. This is my 5th video in which I cover the 3rd type of corporate frauds. Now in my next video, I will cover the procedural related frauds. Friends, I am thankful for all of you for motivating me to make this type of videos. Please, if you like it, please share and subscribe my channel so that it will further motivate me to make more and more videos. For my details, you can see the description under the video, or at the end of the video you can get the details regarding my address, my telephone numbers, my mobile numbers, my mail IDs, as well as my blogs and website address. Thank you. Namaskar.